and you get that real sense of independence, like it's all on you. If something's going wrong, you're the only one that's got to figure it out. And I really like that. I think that's what I get from adventure, is that sense of personal achievement and belief in myself.
Hi and welcome to Passing Outdoors. Today I am sitting with Fiona Quinn. We're going to talk about her adventures and a very unique triathlon that she has managed to do, and other stuff, obviously. So Fiona, welcome.
Thank you.
So I have seen your adventures on social media, and I thought that it'd be great to sit down with you and for other people to hear the story of how you got into adventure and what those adventures look like. We previously had Alex Stansforth on, who talked about you, and he actually said we need to get Fiona, and so here we are, and I'm glad we managed to make it happen.
That's nice.
So Fiona, give us a bit of an introduction to yourself. Where did outdoors start for you?
Yeah, so I guess I'm a bit of an adventurer, speaker, author, business owner, kind of jack of all trades, I'd say. And adventure started for me kind of in my late 20s, really. Like, I wasn't adventurous. I don't think I was really that adventurous as a kid. Like, my parents didn't take me on big adventures or anything. And it's actually my ex-boyfriend who got me into cycling, and it was from there that I kind of took on bigger and bigger cycle rides. And then I kind of figured, well, maybe I could cycle kind of the classic of Land's End on roads, and then it kind of all spiraled a little bit. But I guess my first adventure was cycling Land's End on roads, the first big one. I went solo, self-supported, and I didn't make it. I failed. So I got about 80% of the way in. So I cycled from Land's End all the way up to Cairngorms. It was, I think, October time, and I got caught out by this big storm, and I kind of had to get trained towards the end.
How did you feel about that at the time when you were sat at Cairngorms, and what was it? Was it storm that stopped you, or was it kind of the effects of the storm in terms of any kind of cold?
Yeah, so it was I guess the effects of the storm. So it was just soaking wet, really, really cold, in the middle of nowhere. Couldn't stop shaking. I thought, this feels like my limit. Should probably get a train. It feels a bit stupid to continue in these conditions. And then, got a train, actually went to the end, went to John O'Groats, even though I didn't cycle the whole way. But it was just kind of it was less the point of stopping and more like the lead up to that. It's like, wow, I just cycled 800 miles, even though I didn't get to 1,000, I just cycled 800, and before all I'd ever cycled was 18, so.
Right, well, that kind of starts with answering the question that I was going to ask was, before the 800 miles, what did cycling look like, or what did the outdoors look like for you in the kind of build-up for it?
Yeah, so me and my then boyfriend, we would kind of go on little local rides, kind of day rides and stuff. We did London to Brighton a couple of times, which I think is about 60 miles, to Cambridge, sort of similar distance. And I was just doing those short like day rides on no training. So I was like, oh, this is fun. I could feel my body slowly adapting the more I cycled. And then I guess it was like seeing other people going on big adventures, and like Sean Conway doing Land's End on a great triathlon. Wow, that's awesome. I wonder, could I do that? Right. And that's where I kind of then made that jump from an 80-mile day to 800 miles over 3 weeks.
Well, it's certainly a big difference, I suppose. But I think I've heard it before, whereas your body just adapts and gets used to what it's required to do. It takes a bit of time.
It does, absolutely, yeah.
How did it feel setting off at the beginning?
Exciting. And I guess I've never really been the kind of person to put pressure on myself to go, right, I'm gonna, first time ever cycle Land's End on the Groats in like 9 days or something like that. That's just I'm not a fast kind of person. So I really had a bike that was way too heavy than it should be. Like, I had a laptop with me. Who knows why. So I was completely going at my own pace, letting my body tell me when I wanted to stop every day, or if there was just a great cake shop, then I'd do that. And just met loads of people on the way, friends, but strangers as well, and kind of just took my time. And yeah, my body adapted, and I kind of just got into the rhythm of it, and it was great fun.
So what were the highlights for that on that trip? What stands out for you?
I guess that first one really showed me like Britain. Like, I'd never really explored Britain. I'd never been on holiday in lots and lots of different places. So kind of learning how the lay of the land changes from crazy hills in Cornwall and Devon to sort of, you know, the flat bit in between, and then getting to Scotland, you more like rolling hills, and that was just gorgeous to kind of explore our country, our home country, and how gorgeous it is.
And is exploration and adventure the focus, or was it the original focus for it, or what made you decide I'm going to
Yeah,
decide
I
to
think
get to the other end of the country?
it was probably the personal challenge. Could I do that? Was the main thing that made me want to start. And then as I was going, I kind of realised that how brilliant way of, yeah, sightseeing.
Yeah, it's an interesting sightseeing trip.
Yeah.
And I suppose you can ask what was the worst parts, but I suppose what did you learn from it? What on that specific? I know there's been subsequent trip, but being
Yeah.
the first one, what did you take away? Not take a laptop, or
Number one, don't take a laptop. You don't need it. Yeah, go a bit lighter in general, definitely. Interestingly, on that first one, and actually on a subsequent, when I did the walk as well, I navigated on paper maps. Like I didn't just set my phone and follow a sat nav, and I really liked that. I think also one of the key things, I guess, because I sort of failed, as it were, on that first one, is that wasn't my boundary. Like in hindsight, I'm actually probably could have gone a bit further. And then the next year I went back and cycled it again, a different route for most of it, but actually I went through that section that I bailed on the first time and it was similar conditions actually. I was soaking wet, crying in the rain, and I just kept going. I was like, I know I can go further. And I did, and it was a bit miserable, but I got to the end. And then, yeah.
take two fun, I think they call
Exactly,
it.
exactly, yeah.
That's when you look at it the next day. And did you purposely pick that part of the route, the bit that you stopped at originally?
Yeah, I wanted to go back through that and see
Yeah.
what bit did I miss by not continuing.
Yeah.
And you know, the cairngorms are lovely, so it was really nice to go through it, even though it was raining.
Well, yeah, it rains a lot, so you're lucky if you get it on a nice day, I suppose. So in the second one, was it the next year? What was the kind of time scale for that?
Yeah, so that was the first one was autumn 2016, and then spring 2017. I decided I wanted to go back. I wanted to do it a different way, and I decided to walk it from John O'Groat south down to Land's End, and then it was the following autumn I went back and cycled it again.
So the autumn of the 2017?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So you did it walking and cycling in 1 year, in the same year?
Yeah.
In less than a year, probably, then. So.
Yeah.
So walking, you started from at the north end?
I did. I wanted to end on beaches with ice cream and cream teas.
And what was, obviously there's no bike, but from a mindset perspective, what was the difference in the walking?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in terms of a motivator, it's a completely different mode of transport. I at that point knew that I could effectively cycle the length of Britain, even though I haven't quite done it yet. And I wondered how different it would be walking it. Like walking's easy, right? You just put one foot in front of the other and then you get there. And then once I got going, I realised how monotonous walking is in comparison to cycling. And then actually I really, certainly in the beginning, didn't like walking because there was just one pace. When you go up a hill, down a hill, flat, it's just 3 miles an hour.
And self-supported?
Yeah, self-supported again.
Okay.
Solo, which I really like. It's a nice way of traveling, I think. Like you just talk to so many more people and you get that real sense of independence. Like it's all on you. If something's going wrong, you're the only one that's got to figure it out. Like, and I really like that. I think that's what I get from adventure is that sense of personal achievement and belief in myself.
So is that what you prefer then, to be solo? Or or is it with other adventurers, or is it which? So if you had the choice to go do the same thing with some other more adventurous people, or just do it yourself, what would be the?
It's an interesting question. So most of my adventures have been solo. When I did the paddleboarding one, which I'm sure we'll talk about, I wasn't necessarily adventuring with other people, but I had support crew, which was quite a different experience to being completely solo. Um, I've never done an adventure with another adventurer, which would be really interesting, and I'd quite like to do something like that. I think another adventure that I might talk about was when I tried to cycle across Europe, and I think with that one I would have preferred company. I think it depends on the adventure as to whether I'd want company or not. Yeah.
Yeah, so you've got to take it all on its own merits, I suppose.
Yeah, I think so.
So the walking, the jog, or apart from it being monotonous and a slow pace, what else was challenging? And obviously apart from distance, because that's a challenge in itself.
Yeah,
but
993 miles is
right, okay,
is a fair way.
Yeah.
But it's not actually that far. Like it's I think that's the thing about adventure that I quite like, in that you can go, wow, that's, even if I look at a map now, like that's a hell of a long way. But actually day to day it's not that far, and all the small day bits of progress add up, and you go, wow, look how far I've come, that's incredible.
And in terms of accommodation, were you camping or wild camping or a mixture of
Yeah.
different? How was accommodation?
So I had tent and everything that I needed with me. I think I camped 2 days out of 2 months. I ended up being in a couple of hostels, like friends of friends, families, strangers. Yeah, kind of a real mix. And it often just depended on my mood and like where I was in the country. Like obviously the further south you get, the more populated it is and the harder it is, certainly to wild camp. But yeah, just a mix. And I guess in terms of like challenges for that one, I think the physical side of it, so there's the kind of the mental side of it being monotonous, and the pace was a real challenge, but the physical, I think that's been the most physical challenge I've done. So I got acute tendonitis halfway through, so when I came from the Lake District, I had to stay at a friend's house for a week on crutches.
All right.
Which was just because I didn't train, like I just went
okay.
into 20-mile days straight away. So it's kind of my own fault.
Yeah. Well, if you got as far as the Lake District, that's
Yeah.
that's a long way.
500 miles
before
in
you get,
before I got injured, and then once I was sort of partly recovered from that and got walking again, it was then just torrential rain, and the second lesson was footwear. So I worn walking boots because I was like, oh well, I'm going walking, surely that's what I should wear. But actually, I was on a lot of road and kind of fairly compacted paths and stuff, so trainers would have been a lot better. Because I was in boots, they didn't dry out every night, so I pretty much constantly had wet feet, and so I got trench foot.
All right.
Which was interesting.
Bonus.
Yes.
Acute tendonitis to trench foot.
So it was pretty painful.
Yeah.
Pretty painful going.
Okay. And that was for the rest of the trip?
For pretty much the rest of the trip.
Right.
So once I got walking again, I decided that I wanted to up my daily mileage from 20 to 30 miles a day to make up for the time that I'd had off resting. So I did that for 6 days straight. And then I had a slight flare up of the acute tendonitis again, which is unsurprising. And then it kind of was, yeah, a bit painful from then on to the end, but sort of, it's amazing how you can manage pain. I just found if you kind of just like shake your body out and then just walk and don't think about it and think about like ice cream and like cake and all the good stuff. And then after 5 minutes, there's no pain whatsoever.
Okay. And you said earlier you weren't kind of driven by speed, and talking about the cycling version of it. And then you talked about there about making time up. Was there a time in mind, or for any of these goals you've had? Has there been a time in mind, or you just go with the flow, see how it happens?
Yeah, I mean, I generally have like, I think this is roughly how long it's going to take, just so I can just generally plan things. But it's not fixed, and it's not like I'm racing anyone. So for the walk, I sort of planned it out, and it happened to end up at exactly 2 months. I just quite like the idea of that. So then once I had a week off, I then tried to make it up so that, and also, I didn't particularly enjoy walking that much. So like the quicker I could get it done.
Right, okay, fair enough.
And it ended up being 2 months and 1 day. So I kind of almost made it up. So
yeah, it's fair enough. 2 months of walking sounds like a long time. Sounds like so far. I can imagine you had sore feet. I mean, why would you?
Yeah. But actually, I think even though I didn't enjoy the walking necessarily, like my body changed a lot through that, and the physical challenge of those injuries and stuff, and the mental challenge of the pace. It's probably my favourite adventure, just because like I was like, this was so hard,
right.
And yet I got to the end.
And what did you take? I'm a kind of a big believer in kind of finding improvements from things, and put it positive into it. So what would you take from that, or what have you taken from that adventure, or that leg of the LEJOG to forward into your adventures?
I guess that I can just suffer through things and I can keep going, and like I can find a way through, and I'm
some mindset,
stronger
mental
than I think
strength.
I am. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, amazing. Oh, and then I suppose this is probably the unique part for me anyway, how you made it the triathlon. So you've gone back to, so you've done the work, you've gone back again to complete the cycle that year. And was it a completely different affair, like a completely different sort of approach to the cycle, or did you look at it differently?
I didn't take a laptop that time.
Yep.
Yeah, I learned that lesson. And then I decided that I'd try and go a bit of a different route for most of it. So rather than kind of going up the west side of Britain, I went over to London and then kind of went a bit of the east coast. And then through the bit where I failed the first time and just up round to John O'Groats. And it was a really weird one, doing the exact, pretty much, even though the route was slightly different, pretty much exactly the same thing again. Was a bit weird.
Right.
But I'm glad that I did it, so I can say that I've done it, and I know that I can cycle the length of Britain.
And it wasn't the most direct route if you're talking about going, because so the start point's obviously in Cornwall at Land's End, and then you went across to London.
I did, yeah. So I went up to friends in Bath, and then I had a friend in London, so I was like, oh, I'll just do that then.
Yeah, just add some more miles. For,
yeah.
And once that was done, was it always your plan to link it to a triathlon?
No. So I'm scared of the sea. I nearly drowned when I was a child, so the idea of being in deep open water is pretty terrifying to me.
So, well, can you tell us what happened there then, or do you remember? Were you too young to remember?
No, I remember. I think how old was I? Like 7 or something, I think. And I was in a swimming pool on holiday, and I couldn't swim yet. And my mum was at the bottom of the slide, and I kept going down it, and she would catch me when I came out the end of the slide. And I thought that she was still there, so I ran back up to the top and went down, and she wasn't. And she obviously thought I was somewhere else. And yeah, so I was like flailing around the pool, and the lifeguard standing right behind me didn't do anything, but I managed to get myself to the edge and pull myself out. So I feel fine swimming in swimming pools because I know I can save myself, but the idea of being, as I say, in deep open water is kind of a bit scary because I don't know if I can save myself.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. So when did the idea come for making a triathlon, doing that third leg?
I think the idea that it could be a thing had maybe been in my mind since the walk, because obviously Sean Conway had done a length of Britain triathlon, and he was the first person to swim Land's End on a Groats, and it looked incredible. And just as I was doing the walk, and I'd like walk past the sea, looking out, going, no, there's no way I'm going out there, no way. But then by the time I'd also done the second bike ride and finished those, I was like, I kind of feel like I should. It feels like there's just this element missing, but there was absolutely no way I would swim it. So I'd done paddleboarding a couple of times. At this point, I'd done it once on the sea in Barcelona. And then I'd done it a few times on kind of lakes and rivers inland kind of stuff. And I'd realised that no one had done it Land's End on a Groats yet. So I was like, oh, that'd be cool if I could stay on the board, don't fall off. Then maybe I can manage it. Maybe.
That's your life raft, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
And what route did you plan, or what route did you use for it?
So I copied Sean a lot. I had a good old chat with him about it. He was great. He was super supportive. So I went a very similar route to him. So I went up from Land's End up the west coast of Cornwall over to Wales, and then over the Irish Sea to Ireland. So the east coast of Ireland is much straighter, much more sheltered, far more harbours than Wales. And then went back across to Scotland. Sean wasn't allowed to swim through the Caledonian Canal for, I think, safety reasons, but if there's a shortcut, why not take it? So I was allowed to paddleboard through there, so I went through there, and then up just round to John O'Groats at the end.
Okay. And you had now talk about support crew for that. You mentioned it earlier. What did you have to have in place for
that? So I had a sailing yacht as my support boat, and then I had my plan was to have a photographer and a very experienced skipper who knew all about the sea, knew exactly what he was doing, so he could keep us safe. And I couldn't find a skipper for like love nor money, couldn't find one anywhere. He wanted to come for an indefinite length of time to follow a really slow woman paddleboarding the legs of Britain for some crazy reason. So Liam, my photographer, ended up skippering my boat for me. Luckily, he had some experience with boats, so that was good. So then it was just the two of us for a lot of it. Managed to find a yacht master skipper, John, from Ireland, and he came and helped us with the Irish Sea crossings, which was perfect. Otherwise, I don't think we would have gone. It was just too dangerous to go.
So I'm not a sailor in any way, shape or form, but I want to understand that sea can be a bit rough.
It can, and it can be very changeable. And even like the support boat could only go probably 9 knots an hour, like max speed, because it's a tiny old motor. So if the weather changes and you're in the middle of the Irish Sea, like that's not going to be fun even on a boat. So yeah, it's really, really great to have his knowledge and skills there to support me. And then further north, we started getting a deckhand as well. So that would just help Liam when he was trying to video me as well as sail a boat. Yeah, so I couldn't have done it without them. So they're amazing.
And they were just kind of picked up on the way, or was it people had been made aware of you were looking for somebody, or?
I mean, I tried to try and sort of gather a support crew. I think it was like 5 months in advance. I started kind of putting word out. But it was mainly just through Facebook or just chatting to everyone I could find. I'm like, are you a skipper? Are you a skipper? Can you come and help me? And so some of them were like friends of friends, but often, yeah, just through random Facebook posts and that kind of stuff.
The power of social media.
Absolutely.
And then when you got into the canal system, was that you were solo then, or were you?
The support boat came to two.
All right, okay.
Because we had to get this boat to the other side, so they might as well come with me.
Yes, obviously.
But yeah, it was so summer 2018 was at that point, I think the hottest April day or something on record, or whenever it was. Obviously that's been beaten now, but so like the bridges and stuff would like lock shut because they would expand too much, like about halfway through the day. So we kept getting stuck, so the support boat couldn't come with me. So it took a lot longer actually to get through there than we thought, which is funny because it's inland and it's easier, but yeah.
And how long did that take?
That particular section?
No,
the whole thing.
The whole leg.
So it was an 81-day expedition, but only about 35 of those days were paddling because there was just like loads of bad weather, like storms would roll in for 2 weeks and that kind of thing.
So that kind of downtime, is that just in harbours and things, just waiting for the weather window to?
Absolutely, yeah. We just live on the support boat and wait it out.
And I suppose when you get to the end of that, how does that feel?
Yeah, it was funny. Like I was ready for it to be over, I think. Like Liam even said to me, why don't you just do a lap? I was like, no, good.
All right.
Yeah, but it was really cool, like, and also weird because I didn't feel like, like an expert or anything. I still felt like a complete amateur. I was still scared of the sea. Given what happened at Corryvreckan, I mean, potentially even more scared of the sea than I was before I started.
So talk about that.
Yeah, so Corryvreckan is the world's third largest whirlpool, which is in the Western Isles of Scotland. And we were paddling past there, and my support boat left me for, we were thinking like sort of maybe max like 40 minutes or something, so they could go and do a crew change and refuel the boat. It was like a super calm day. We didn't expect there to be any tide. We thought, it will be fine. I'm not going to be blown out to sea or anything. And then it kind of didn't go to plan. There was a lot more tide than we were expecting. I was being pulled round towards this whirlpool. And just, I guess, to put the whirlpool in perspective, there was, I think it was a Channel 4 production company. They did an experiment. They got an adult-sized dummy with a life jacket and a depth gauge. threw it into the whirlpool, and it got pulled. I think it was something like 262 meters or something down to the seafloor, dragged along the seabed, and then kicked out further downstream.
Okay. And did you know about that prior to
I
doing
did.
this? Oh, was that useful information, or was that?
So I knew that I definitely didn't want to go anywhere near it.
Yeah. No, okay.
And like my skipper beforehand, when they left me, because we had John with us at this point, he said, just keep this side of the channel. If you get pulled anyway, you'll get pulled away from the whirlpool. But as it happened, for some reason the tide wasn't as he expected it to be, and I was being pulled towards Croydon. So I sort of text him, like, please hurry, tide's really strong. At this point, I was paddling against the tide, like pointing to Crinan, where they'd gone to do the crew change and refuel the boat. And I was kind of paddling for like 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And like, well, I can't fight the tide. I can't go over and beach myself on that island. I literally can't do anything other than try and stay where I am. And then John phoned me, and and I was not in the best of mindsets at this point, and I was just like crying my heart out. And where are you? I'm gonna die. I'm being pulled towards a whirlpool. And as I was kind of trying to explain to him like where I was, like what I could see, the water all around me just kind of shifted again into this one big circle, and I was right in the middle of it. And I knew that other whirlpools developed at different tide states, and they wouldn't get as big as Corrivacan, but I didn't know how big they'd get and kind of what impact that would have on my board. So I just had to quickly say, like, this is what I can see, I've got to go, bye. And just paddle like crazy, and I got to the edge of the swirling water, and then finally I saw my boat on the horizon, and luckily they came and scooped me up. So it was all okay in the end, and I was still a couple of miles away from Corrivacan, but I didn't know, how long I could keep paddling for and how it would turn out.
You still had to, you're essentially just kind of running on the spot or paddling on the spot, are you?
Exactly. Yeah.
And if you're not, then you're being pulled the wrong way.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I can understand why that would be a concern.
That's scary.
I bet, yeah. And has that experience helped your fear of water, or like the fact that you got through it, or is it, how have you, I suppose we'll get onto how you've documented this, but how has that affected your management of fear?
I think I'm not sure if that particular incident has had much of an impact. I think being on a boat um, has almost made me more scared of the water for some reason. Like I think just when boats, particularly when boats, I think what they call it, when they're under sail and they kind of tip.
Yeah.
Pitching, is it?
Yeah, potentially.
That like terrifies me. And even when we were in harbour and like it would be a windy day or something, the boat would rock, that would just really bring out this fear in me. And since then, I actually worked for a boating company in their marketing department, and we went on a trip to Greece, and so we stayed on a couple of boats for like a week, and I like had like a half panic attack on that boat, and I feel like the general fear of being on the water during that adventure has kind of brought fear a bit more to the surface in general. Yeah.
But so that your adventure, the 4 legs, but the 3 legs, triathlon of the LEJOG, you wrote a book.
I did. Yeah, it's called Ignore the Fear, and it predominantly focuses on the paddleboarding trip. And I guess one thing maybe I don't think I made clear at the beginning was that I didn't actually train for the paddleboarding trip, like because I was so scared. I was like, well, I don't want to scare myself even more. I'm going.
Just do it, yeah.
So if I just do it, if I just start before I'm ready, then I'll just see like what I can achieve. And that's kind of the essence of the book. Is like, there's nothing wrong with being an amateur. Like, crack on. You don't need to have loads of qualifications and things. Obviously, do it safely. Like, I had a support crew to make sure I didn't die. But yeah, that kind of idea of just, I've got this idea, I want to have a go and see what happens, and that's totally legitimate approach.
So pick your adventure and just crack on with it. So, yeah. And have you had much kind of feedback from readers from it and what they've done or how they've found the book? Yeah,
I think people have found it inspiring of like that whole idea of starting before you're ready, and they go, well, they don't want to paddleboard the length of Britain, but they do want to paddleboard their local river or something like that, and that's kind of spurred them on to go, well, actually, I'm not an expert, I'm not like a qualified cycle instructor or something, but I know enough that I could get started, and I quite like that it inspires other adventures.
Yeah, no, that's great. And then, so that was, when did you paddle that? What year? Was it 2018?
2018.
And when you got to the end of that, was there a, right, glad that's done, or was it a, maybe a bit of both, but was it, well, what my next?
Yeah, there's always that question, isn't there, when you do an adventure, like, oh great, yeah, you've done that, but like, what is next?
Yeah. Or did you feel you had to kind of process it first?
I did kind of feel this pressure to do another big adventure, which was interesting because then I kind of went on. I did go on to do to attempt another big adventure. I really liked cycling. I think of all the ways to travel, that was kind of the one that I felt most comfortable in. And I've never really explored Europe, so I was like, oh great, I could like cycle across Europe. Maybe I could just follow the coast of the Mediterranean. That sounds pretty cool. And all the people I told about this adventure, so I was going to go from Gibraltar round to Greece. So I think it was 9 countries, 4,000 miles, loads of elevation, and I was going to try and do it in 2 months. So the extra challenge I'd given myself was to average 100 miles a day. And all the people that I told about this adventure, like, oh, that sounds amazing. I'd love to just take 2 months of work and go cycle across Europe. I'm like, oh yeah, cool. And then I realised that once I started the adventure, like, I was doing it because I thought I should do another big adventure. And actually, this wasn't like, I didn't have that pull that I did with the paddleboarding. Like, when I came up with the idea of paddleboarding Britain, it felt like such a ludicrous idea. Like, I'm scared of the sea, I barely have any experience paddleboarding, yet alone on the sea. Like, I don't have any funding. I didn't have a support crew at the beginning. I didn't even know how tides worked when I started planning it all. So kind of the ridiculousness of it was like, oh, I have to do this. I have to see if I can make this work. But then with the cycle across Europe, it just kind of sounded cool, and other people really thought it was cool. But I didn't really have that same kind of draw. And I think that's a lesson I learned. That's a really important part of choosing an adventure, that it's got to be right for me,
And
for the right
kind of be
reasons.
passionate about it and be invested in it.
And I was really interested in exploring Europe, but I think actually coming back to that earlier question you asked, if would I adventure with other people or on my own, I think with that one I would have liked to have gone with other people. I'm not great at languages. It makes me really nervous about talking to people. So it would have been really nice to have that kind of company, do it with someone. So I did start it, and I got to Nice in France, and I got an offered job, and then that was a perfect excuse to hit pause and go home.
So how far was that?
Gosh,
Did you work that out?
I don't think I did.
No.
I don't.
But the job was more of a kind of draw than finishing it.
It was. I just felt super lonely on it because I couldn't chat to people like I could in Britain. And at this point, I was kind of veggie, and cycling along the coast is just lots of seafood, so that didn't really work terribly well.
That's true, yeah.
So yeah, and also actually, like, so the route I was trying to follow was Eurovelo Route 8, which is a notional cycle route. So there's no actual cycle route. And particularly the way that Spain is developed, you either have a motorway or a beach, and they don't have any like side roads to connect up. So you either have to, choose one or the other.
Yeah.
And it's very sort of slow going.
One's slower, one's dangerous.
Yeah, exactly. So I wasn't able to hit anywhere near 100 miles a day, and it would have taken me probably 4 months rather than 2. So
yeah,
there's kind of lots of reasons that it didn't work out as I expected.
It's you learn from it. You learn that you need to be passionate about it, and then
yes.
So then, how what does kind of the outdoors look like following that? Did you still love cycling, or did you go in a different direction? What was the?
Yeah, still love cycling, love hiking. I guess started doing more local stuff. So it was in 2020 actually so 2019 was when I attempted to cycle across Europe. And then 2020 I moved up to the Lake District before everything kicked off. Brilliant timing in hindsight. So I wanted to get to know the Lake District a bit better. Like, I'd only ever been here the first time was when I was walking and I had that injury, and then I kind of visited a lot since then. So I came up with this idea of, I think I called it the big water hike. So just hiking a lap of each of the big waters in the Lake District, just to get to know the area. So I kind of started that just before lockdown, first lockdown, and then it's kind of just been sort of piecemeal over the last sort of 2.5 years. I've got two left, two more to do.
Which ones have you got?
Oh, I know you're gonna ask me that. I have no idea.
Okay, let's do it. And have you got a schedule for them, or is it just when it fits? Or when?
I'd like to do them this year. Hopefully this autumn at some point. Actually, one of them's Bassenthwaite. I remember that.
Okay, is it good?
Yeah.
And it's a hike round, or are you cycling around them and paddling them, or is there a triathlon type challenge there? I don't know.
Well, hiking a lap, and then I did have an idea to turn them into some form of triathlon, to kind of do some kind of cycle paddleboard link up. I haven't nailed the details of that yet. I was kind of hoping to do that this summer, but then I got a little bit distracted with the new ice cream business.
Talk about that.
But so hopefully maybe next year I might do like the kind of big round once I've finished off the hiking. Then also I did do my running adventure last year, which I completely forgot about.
Well, I was wondering when that was going to drop, because I've seen it on social media, and I was just wanted to see what that was. Or can you tell us what that is?
Yeah, so I'd always like kind of prided, not sort of, well, I had this kind of, I guess, an identity thing where I was like, I'm not a runner, because like so many people in the outdoors are. And I was like, it just doesn't feel like it's for me. Like I don't like going fast. Hiking's great, like as it is. Running just sounds like you get injured all the time. But I kind of saw like Jasmine Parrish, she just absolutely smashed the spine race. I was like, oh, that was so cool. And she did it while she was expressing milk for her baby. I'm like, that's insane. And she beat all the men, like just so many cool things about it. It's like maybe I could be a runner. Like obviously I'm not being anything like near what she is, but maybe I could run that same route and become a runner. So that's kind of what I set out to do. So it's I think it's 260 miles. I was going to attempt it in a similar way that she did. I mean, she did it in winter, but I was going to do it in summer. But I was going to do it in one continuous go. So like 5 maybe more days just without sleep, just running. So that's sort of what I trained for. I've never trained for anything before because I knew that if I didn't train for running, I
was going to say that's unusual. You trained?
Yeah, I know. Which was a challenge in itself. Like it just makes the adventure so much longer. And then I kind of learned that yes, if you run, you get injured very, very quickly. So we were saying with the hike, when I was walking down a Great Land's End, it took 500 miles before I got acute tendonitis. But with the running, I think I'd run for a couple of weeks and I got like an injury. And it was just, injury recovery, like it just was that for months. And then as I was doing that, I was kind of using the training to kind of recce parts of the route along the Pennine Way, which is what I was going to be running. And I kind of realised that actually this route, while it was great for Jasmine, it just didn't really feel right for me. I'm not a fan of cows. There's a lot of cows on this route. There was points where they kind of ran at me, and that was very scary. I did not like the idea of doing that and running for 5 days straight. So as it got kind of closer to the point where I was thinking of, like, I think initially I was going to go in like July or something, and it was maybe kind of June time. I was like, actually, again, my heart's just not in it. I just really don't want to run the Pennine Way, but I do want to do some kind of running challenge. So I decided that I would try and run the length of the Outer Hebrides. So it's a bit shorter. It's only 150 miles. I wouldn't do it throughout the night. Like I've never done anything continuous before. I just take my time and do it kind of, during the day in my sleep. And usually my adventures are very cake filled, so I stop for food loads and
that did seem to be when you were talking about it, did seem to be the goal is cake or ice cream or something.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's
kind of,
yeah. So it's kind of a funny. I guess it was a bit like the bike ride. Like it didn't really feel like me. So I attempted it anyway. Like I went with Ellie. She filmed me. She was a videographer. and we did it over. So she only had 5.5 day window to come film it for me, so I kind of had to do it over this period. So, and as a result, I think of pushing myself too much, I got injured part way, and I ended up walking on like the sort of second half of it. So in all, I think I kind of travelled on foot, walking and hiking. Running and walking about 100. I think it was 120 miles or 130 miles, something like that. I think. But yeah, so it was interesting. And then when I got back after that run, I just went out with my friend Rory Southworth, and we just ran from. There's a cake shop called Vanilla in Windermere, and we went and stopped off at one in Ambleside, and then ended up at another cake stop in Grasmere, and that was like 12 miles, I think. 3 cake stops. Like if I'm gonna run, that is my kind of run.
That's your
with
metric.
a mate.
So, how many cake stops are we going to do today?
Exactly, like just chill pace, like not trying to make anything of it. So I call it the cake run, obviously,
Yeah.
and that was just the year, sort of the end of the year of running, and I haven't really run since.
Right.
I'm not a runner. That's what I learned.
Yeah. When you talk about the cake stop, there's a runner called Damien Hall. Have you heard him talk? Yeah, I've heard of him. And his is just so unique cake.
Yes.
So I think it's a common ultra runner theme. Before we started recording, you were talking about you maybe not being involved in many adventures, sort of bigger or nothing. No, maybe it's wrong to say no adventures to focus on because you're doing something a little bit different or that's taking up your time more.
I am, yeah.
What have you decided to fill your adventurous life with?
Well, I've been running businesses for like the last 15 years, but I came up with this new idea to start an ice cream business in the Lake District. We are 100% plant-based, and I make all the ice cream myself, and I have an ice cream cart that I take to different locations across the Lake District and weddings and farmers markets and stuff. So I sell that. So that's what I've been doing this summer.
And that's been keeping you busy?
Keeping me very busy, yeah.
Keeping it out the house, or you managed to get it out?
Occasionally, but it hasn't been as much as I'd have liked, which has been a real shame. I kind of really noticed the difference in kind of, work-life balance has been a bit off this summer, which has been a shame. Particularly with the good weather, like when it's good weather, you want to be selling ice cream right rather than being in the hills, which is a bit of a shame. But it's been, massive learning curve, and there's so many parallels between startup and business in general and adventure. And a key one that I like to say is if I didn't cry, it doesn't count.
Okay.
So, it's been great.
So, what have you, you touched on it there, but what have you learned in your adventures that has brought you in? Obviously, you've been running business for a while, but what have you managed to transfer, or either way, I suppose, from running businesses to doing adventures? What has been the kind of key skill that you can carry over?
I think the big one is, I guess I have a saying that everything's figure outable. Like whether you're stuck on a paddleboard being pulled towards a whirlpool, or your ice cream machine's broken in the middle of August and you can't sell any ice cream. There's always a way forward. You can always do something different, and those challenges just make you see your situation in a different perspective, and maybe come up with new ideas that you wouldn't have thought of otherwise. So that's kind of the main takeaway, really.
It's a good lesson for a lot of people to do. The positive side. And obviously building the Rebel Gelato. That'll be a goal, I would imagine. What have you got? Other goals, adventure-based goals that you've got for obviously finish your round of all the lakes.
Yeah.
Anything that you've got in the future, or are you just kind of going with the flow, as it were, because you've got a business to run?
A bit busy. Always had ideas about things. Like I've had some ideas about other paddleboarding adventures. And I think it's another parallel is that I like to have ideas kind of just sit for a while. I thought about doing an ice cream business kind of 5 years ago, but I didn't do it straight away. I was like, do I want to do this? And I think waiting for the right time for adventures and that kind of stuff is important, as well as for businesses. So I've got some ideas, some things I'm like, would I like to do that? Maybe. So yeah, we'll see what happens in the future.
So you're gonna wait to see if you've got if it sticks.
If it
Because
sticks,
then
yeah,
you're
yeah. If I
then
get excited about it, as I
Mhm.
have done with Rebel Gelato and with
Mhm.
like the paddleboarding one, I think.
Mhm.
And also the paddleboarding one's a bit hard to top because it was just so ridiculous
Yeah.
that I would go and paddleboard the length of Britain, and yeah, I did it. How do I
Well,
top that?
well, maybe we should have talked about it. I was just remembered about it now. But you were also paddling with some wildlife.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was dolphins along the way. That was super fun.
Yeah.
About 4 or 5 different occasions, they would come and kind of get right close to my board and kind of look up at me through the water, and that was really magical. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was super cool.
And did they kind of stay away from you, or like you say you got up close, but did you feel there was any risk of them kind of nudging you, or do you think
No.
they were up for a nosy?
Yeah, they were just super friendly. I never felt like they were, yeah, threatened or anything. They were going to come and try and knock me in or anything. Yeah, it was just awesome. And they came sort of towards the end of when I was paddleboarding across the Irish Sea. So it was like an amazing like little kind of boost to just get us that final push, which was really nice. And we had other wildlife as well. Like there's loads of jellyfish further north, seals and puffins, and there was a whale at one point, but I didn't see it. It was behind me, and my crew were like in front of me, and I could see them pointing at something. And I was like, "Oh, it's the dolphins! They'll come and like swim near me." So I didn't turn around. And then when I got later back on the boat, they're like, "No, it was a massive whale." Like, why didn't you tell me?
May not want to know. So if you had to choose one from the three trips, from the three trips, which one had the most highlights, or which one would you say was your favourite of the three?
I think the walk.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was so hard mentally and physically. And yes, I got to the end. And also, that was actually my first one to get to the end of because the first cycle I failed. So, yeah, I think that was kind of, and it was completely solo. Like I kind of said, I think at the beginning, like having support crew really changes the adventure. Like you can't just go, right, I'm just going to walk or I'm just going to paddle indefinitely. Like you've got to realize that there's only one person on the support boat and they've motored you out here, they're motoring while you're paddling, and then they're going to motor you back. Like he's got a longer day than I have.
Yeah.
So it kind of it restricts you as well as enabling you to do things you wouldn't otherwise be able to do.
So the freedom of the adventure, maybe.
Yeah, the freedom of the walk was great.
Well, I look forward to tasting the ice cream when the ice cream machine's fixed or is back up and running. But and I also look forward to see what the next adventure will be and what sticks and what happens, and maybe come back on and tell us about it.
Absolutely.
But thank you for your time. It's been great to talk to you. It's been a real insight. And yeah, we'll catch you again soon.
Brilliant. Thanks for having me.
Right. That's been Pattern Outdoors. Check out all the other episodes, obviously Alex's episode as well, but this will go out on YouTube and Spotify, and this will go out on all the other podcast channels, and we'll catch you next time.